Good morning, church. I am Jane Salisbury, and I'm glad to be here with my daughter Claire and my husband Isaac on this Feast of the Holy Family. I knew from an early age that I would not ever be able to bear a child for medical reasons. I grew up in Southern Oregon in the 50s and 60s in a family with happily married parents who were separated only by my mother's death after 57 years of marriage. Even though that life was not to be for me, I still dreamed of marriage and 2 or 3 lovely children. I volunteered in Alaska and in Zimbabwe, embarked on my long career as a public librarian, and had a precious tribe of close friends. But the family I wanted evaded me. When suddenly I was nearly 40, I knew I would have to do it alone. In 1993, I went to China to adopt a baby. Like thousands of other baby girls, she had been abandoned and, when found, brought to an orphanage, another casualty of China's one-child policy and a culture that favored boys. When I first saw Li Juo at the Hunan First Social Welfare Institute, she was rocking around the floor of the orphanage in a little bamboo walker. Clearly, she was a determined person at only 9 months old. As we rode away from the orphanage on the bus, she sat comfortably on my lap, calm and curious, staring at me, this white stranger who had come to change her life irrevocably. On our very long journey across the Pacific, I fed her, played with her, walked her up and down the aisle of the airplane, all the while thinking, this is my daughter, I am her mother. This is my daughter, I am her mother. On one of those flights, I named her Claire. I chose this old family name to welcome her to our family for good. Though many years have passed, the words mother and daughter still sound a note of surprise and enormous privilege to me. Single parenthood, however, was a serious challenge, and I was often at the end of my rope. I never would have managed to raise Claire without the help of so many people: her adoring grandparents, my 2 brothers, her godmother Clarissa, Aaron, who helped me parent, and my friends Jean and Joan, who kept me sane. Those first few nights alone with Claire at home in Portland, I woke up several times late at night with a strong sense that there was a third person in the house, a palpable presence, benevolent and steady. Whether that was the divine or Claire's first mother, her birth mother, come to watch over us, this mystical experience sustained me through the 10 years of single parenting that were ahead. And then I met Isaac, who has sustained me and walked with me since.
I was the 6th of 7 children of mostly German and very Catholic roots. In fact, we moved to Mount Angel in 1960 to enjoy this predominantly Catholic milieu. My parents were good people who taught me to be kind to everyone, even non-Catholics. When I asked my parents if I had to love the Russian old believers, they assured me that I certainly did need to love them too, even though they dressed in strange clothes. When I was 21, after 3 years at Mount Angel Seminary, I joined the Benedictine monastic community. I felt a call to prayer and community and was looking perhaps for another family of sorts in this religious congregation dedicated to work and prayer. I like the charism of hospitality in the rule of St. Benedict, which says, all guests are to be received as Christ, and later was given the challenge of being appointed guest master for 6 years, welcoming strangers and friends to the Abbey. But after 25 years of Benedictine life, I chose to leave once again in search of family. I had found loneliness in the Abbey, my own and that of others as well. And although I will always cherish my life at the Abbey, it was not the family I wanted. In 2001, I left and moved to Portland. Since I was new to the city, a friend I'd known in Mount Angel invited me to dinner along with Jane and her young daughter. I was quite impressed with Claire, who was not at all shy. At one point, she called her playmate an imbecile, which made me laugh. I thought that was a pretty big word for a 10-year-old. From the start, I was attracted to Jane, and since she worked at the Central Library and I worked across the street, it was easy to see each other on our lunch breaks. Of course, our courtship included Claire. How could it be otherwise? I went to her soccer games and we had tacos together after. A year later, but only with Claire's approval, Jane and I married in 2003. We became a family with the help and support of Pat and Marilyn Fleming, Jean McQuiggan and Jack Kennedy, and many other friends from this very parish. Still, I did not become a dad instantly. I did grow to love Claire, and when she was younger, I used to sing Gregorian chant to her as she was going to sleep. A couple of years after we married, I asked Claire if I could adopt her, and if so, when would that be? She said, "When I can call you Dad without thinking about it." That day came when Claire was 14. We had a lovely party at her house to celebrate. Jane's brother John read the adoption petition, which he had written, which included the words, "Because Isaac loves Claire," at which everyone cheered. What I have learned about being a father is that while we cannot take away the pain for our children, we can let them know that they are loved and that we will always be there for them.
My family was built around me. I didn't have much say in the matter. This woman who went all the way to China to get me, she was my mom, and this man who used to be a Benedictine priest, he was my dad. Nothing out of the ordinary there. But as I got older, answering questions like, "Is that really your mom and dad?" became troubling. I often doubted whether they counted as family because there was no matching DNA or blood type. This caused several outbursts throughout the years. One that particularly stands out, was on Thanksgiving at my grandparents' house when I was 10 or 11 years old. I'm not exactly sure what came over me, but as I looked around the table, I suddenly saw all these people who didn't look like me. I felt disconnected and alone. I left the table, crying out that I didn't belong there, and ran to my room. I don't think anyone really knew what to do, but my Aunt Janine finally came in to talk to me. She explained that no matter how much I screamed and made a scene, they would always be my family, that they didn't scare off so easily. And it's true. Throughout my whole life, my family has unconditionally loved and supported me. My mom chose to raise me in a village, adding many unique and special people to my life. Today, I am blessed to call these people family. As I grew older, I took this practice with me, adding to the wide family my mom started. I have friends of 10 years and more whom I have turned into family. The strength I receive from these relationships, I have channeled into being the best nurse that I can be. As an inner city nurse, I work with many patients who struggle with drug and alcohol addictions and with mental illness. It can be very difficult. I think there are times I would not have been able to retain my compassion for these patients if I didn't have a whole village of people many of whom are here today, cheering me on. This spring, the three of us are returning to China on the 25th anniversary of my adoption. I was hesitant to make this trip, but finally I feel solid enough in my sense of self to go back there. That strength comes from wholeheartedly feeling the love and support from the two strangers who decided to be my parents, and from all of those other people whom Mom and I have added to my big family. As we reflect on the Advent theme of welcoming the stranger and the Feast of the Holy Family, think about the people around you, not just those with whom you share blood and DNA, but also those with whom you choose to call family. Remember how blessed we are to have these people in our life. Thank you.
Well, it is 3 years since we gave this talk in the church. We did go to China together, and it was an amazing journey. Claire is now married to Jason and expecting a baby in June. We are at home as you all are, and very grateful to be healthy and to be looking forward to the promise of a new year. We send everyone our best for a peaceful and joyful Christmas.